Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here, and today I am super excited to share with you something that you have asked about, and that is banana bread. Now, a lot of you have been writing in saying, my banana bread, it turns out really gummy, it's dense, and it's not moist. What can I do to make it better? Well, today I'm gonna share with you the Test Kitchen's favorite banana bread, and I think you're gonna love it. We're gonna get started with the dry ingredients. Now in this bowl here, I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I'm going to add 1 cup of granulated sugar. I have a teaspoon of coarse salt. Again, we use kosher salt here in the Test Kitchen, so coarse salt, whenever you're using our recipes, make sure you're using that, and you don't use fine salt, otherwise it's gonna be too salty. I have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So this is a very simple quick bread. That's what a banana bread is, a zucchini bread, a carrot bread. It's basically any bread that doesn't use yeast to leaven. These types of breads use chemical leaveners like baking soda and baking powder. Now to this I'm gonna add a little bit of spice, and this is really somewhere where you can customize this recipe. I have 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom and 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, but you can use whatever warm spices you like. Warm spices go really well with things like banana and zucchini and carrot. So go into your spice cabinet, find all those baking spices that maybe you use every so often and try them in this recipe. I'm sure you're gonna like it. So sift together your dry ingredients, and this is really just so everything is nice and evenly distributed. And you know what, I really love quick bread recipes because you don't need to get out a stand mixer. You can do all of this by hand. Super easy. The only challenging and difficult thing is that you need to measure out all of your ingredients. But if you have a well-stocked pantry, you should be able to make this any day of the week. And now it's time for the wet ingredients. Now, I have 3 overripe bananas here, and these are actually bananas that I've stored in the freezer. One great tip for you, if you have bananas that are sitting out on the counter and they're turning black, you don't have any intention of making banana bread that day, pop them in your freezer because they're really great to use from the thawed state. 3 bananas, I'm gonna mash this up with a potato masher. You could also use a fork. To the bananas here, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, just for a little bit of flavor. 3 large eggs, and whenever you're adding eggs, whenever you're baking cakes and quick breads and things like that, you wanna make sure that you're using room temperature ingredients. So these eggs have been at room temperature. This will help to kind of have a nice even batter that will bake up nicely in the oven. So I'm gonna just use the potato masher here, mix these together. And now for a little bit of fat, which is gonna help keep a really nice and moist quick bread. I have 1 stick of unsalted butter that's melted and cooled. You know, there are a lot of recipes out there for quick breads and spice cakes that use oil, and while oil does contribute an amazing thing in terms of keeping a nice moist cake or quick bread, it doesn't add a lot of flavor. So that's why in a lot of our recipes we use melted butter, because it has really great flavor. And then the last wet ingredient here is a little bit of buttermilk. Now buttermilk is gonna react with the baking soda that we have in the dry mixture, and it's gonna create nice bubbles that are gonna leaven the cake, and it's gonna be delicious. So this is 1/3 cup of buttermilk here. Again, this is at room temperature. Give this a little bit of a mix. And now it's as simple as mixing the wet ingredients with the dry ingredients with a trusty rubber spatula here. And you wanna make sure your oven is preheated to 375 degrees with the rack in the middle of the oven. And before you kind of start the process of making your quick bread, your banana bread here, you want to butter and flour a 9x5 standard loaf pan like this. And that will just help in making sure that the loaf releases nicely from the pan when it's done baking. Now, I have mixed together my wet and my dry ingredients, but you can see there are still clumps of flour. This is what you want. Don't overmix your batter because it's gonna be really tough, and you might end up with actually a banana bread that's kind of gummy. So don't mix it completely. We're gonna add the last ingredient, which was a favorite Test Kitchen add-in, and that is some chocolate chips. Now, if you're not a big fan of chocolate chips, you don't have to add them here. But if you really like nuts, if you like toasted walnuts or toasted pecans would be really fantastic in here. Even some shredded toasted coconut would be a really fun tropical twist on a banana bread. So gently fold these chocolate chips in. Again, we don't want to over-mix this batter. We don't want to overdevelop the gluten that's in the flour. This is going right into our loaf pan. And again, this is gonna go into a 375-degree oven for about an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And a way that you can tell if your loaf is completely done is to use a toothpick or a cake tester inserted into the center of the loaf, and it should come out with a few moist crumbs. Now, don't be alarmed, guys, if you get a few crumbs on your cake tester, because you want your loaf to be really nice and moist. You don't want it to be gummy, so if you see any kind of bits of batter left on your toothpick or cake tester, you want to make sure that you return it back to the oven. But a few moist crumbs are perfectly acceptable. Give the loaf a little tap, right into the oven, again, for about an hour. All right, the banana bread, it's been out of the oven. Now, after the first 10 minutes of cooling, you want to turn the loaf out of the pan so that the sides and the bottom don't steam and get soggy. That's one trick that you guys need to know when baking anything really in a loaf pan, that you want to turn it out onto a cooling rack to cool completely. It's a really great tip. Now, this is completely cool, and I want to show you what it looks like on the inside, guys. Banana bread. Rich, chocolatey, nice and moist from that wonderful frozen banana. This is our Test Kitchen's favorite banana bread. I'm sure you're gonna love it. Customize it to your taste, whether it's with chocolate chips or coconut or whatever you like. There you go, guys. You've asked, we've delivered. Now, if you have any other kitchen conundrums, write in the comment section below. Love to hear from you. And we also love to see what you're making. Enjoy, guys. And as always, guys, click like and subscribe.